guess you don't need that C sharp. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it still works, but it's really low. We made it for easy.
It must. How long has it been broken? Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's here somewhere.
Welcome everybody to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. It's really a pleasure to have you here in the temple room itself, which was really conceived as an oasis, a place within four walls that would give a kind of a shelter, a place where one could come and give full focus in a sanctified atmosphere for realizing one's spiritual potential. And for those who have joined online, the way in which we designed this temple when we first purchased it a few years ago was to have it as a broadcasting center. We were really thinking of you, the audience outside. At the same time, we were thinking about how to make it sanctified inside. We really wanted to broadcast outside. And our team of broadcast designers and engineers have put a lot of thought into how to keep the vibration going outside on the internet. And we do have a control room here that is pretty much packed up with gizmos and gadgets. And if at any time you had to open any of these walls, you would notice that they're full of wires throughout the whole building. We saw it when we were first remodeling this place at the various stages when we started this temple. And because of a need for sound in all the rooms, video and cameras and so forth, it required a lot of wires, a lot more than I would have thought. But that was the idea. And so we really, if you're online watching now, we really feel your presence, consider you part of the community, and we thank you for joining. I offer my respectful obeisances thousands of times to the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and to all the predecessor acharyas who came before him, and to all of you, because you are Vaishnavas, and therefore are the most worshipable in the three worlds. Hare Krishna. It's very important in order to have balance and peace in one's life and to have some structure. And that is especially important in knowing where one can derive one's authoritative knowledge. Because there are a lot of suggestions in the world about how one should conduct one's life. If you just drive down the 101 freeway, you'll find that people suggest a lot of various ways that you should divert your attention and that you should give your money, things that you should invest in, and so forth. And practically everywhere we look, people are vying for our attention. And when we speak to people, they may have their own thoughts about what's the best way in which we should conduct our lives. Do you find that to be true? Are there a variety of opinions that you find? Yes. So, if one were to use one's God-given human intelligence to come to a decision that some of that information is better than others, then one might be able to triangulate and come closer and closer to a decision of where to take one's ultimate authority in life. And this would be really helpful in having a determined effort in life and a goal for one's life. The ancient Upanishads say, Anyadeva hor vidyaya, anyarahor avidyaya, iti shushumatiranam yenas tad vijichakshire. And that is that people who have attained a level of spiritual success that allows them to be completely balanced in this life, no matter what else is going on around them, who are called Tira. have concluded that there's different qualities of knowledge that one can consume in this life. And the statement of the Upanishad, Sri Upanishad says, Anyarevahur vidyaya, anyarahur avidyaya, that there's a difference in the quality of your life when you take on what is true knowledge and what is fragmented or reflected knowledge, or what is actually not knowledge, it's actually disinformation. And the Ishopanishad warns that oftentimes people put forward what they say is knowledge, but it's actually avidya or ignorance. But it's just dressed up like knowledge, like it's supposed to be important or helpful, but it's not really. So one of the ways in which the great teachers of the science of devotional service have gone about presenting the overall philosophy and the practice of devotional service is to begin with the science of epistemology, and that is to help us determine, to know where to get correct information and how to verify that it's correct. And you'll find a discussion of this at the beginning of the book in the introduction called Sri Upanishad. It's in a series of lectures that Srila Prabhupada gave in England in the 1970s, I believe. And he talks about how the kinds of knowledge that we get through our senses is not reliable because our senses are imperfect. And we also have a tendency to make mistakes. And therefore, we need a kind of source of knowledge that is infallible and self-effulgent. And even ancient philosophers like Plato and Socrates agreed with the principle that you have to be able to find a source of knowledge that's self-revealing. The knowledge itself it proves itself, because otherwise, if you question every source of knowledge and you continue questioning, you get what's called infinite regress. In fact, like a godbrother of mine points out, a kind of scenario that might take place if you say that water boils at 200 degrees. What does it boil at? 100 degrees. And then someone says, prove it. And I get a thermometer and some water and I start boiling it. It starts to boil and I notice the thermometer says 100. And then someone can say, well, prove that's a real thermometer. Now I bring my thermometer testing kit and I test the thermometer and it works. It's actually accurate. And then someone says, prove that's a real thermometer testing kit. There's a way in which I can continue to retreat, but there is a point at which I have to use my human faculties of intelligence to come to a decision of what seems to be the best source of knowledge that I can possibly take. And Jiva Goswami, who advocates for starting with this kind of exercise of understanding where real knowledge comes from, points out that the Vedas are such self-effulgent knowledge. They prove themselves. And if one wants to investigate, Prabhupada writes, he can look at certain parts. For instance, he says, the Shastra says that cow dung is pure. Of course, in other places it says that the stool of an animal or a human is contaminating. If you touch it, you have to take a bath. So this seems inconsistent. But if you test cow dung, you'll find out that it actually is antiseptic. In this way, Prabhupada says, you can go through and if you want to try to investigate all the different aspects of the Shastra, you're free to do so. However, to save time, you can accept that they're self-effulgent knowledge and coming from a perfect authority or God himself. And this is the point at which Prabhupada points out, for instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, if you accept that Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's not influenced by ignorance, then you accept and open your heart to the information, then you'll make rapid progress. And he suggests that even if you don't know for sure, if you just suspend your disbelief for some time when you're reading the Bhagavad Gita and read it in that spirit, then you'll feel the full effect of the Bhagavad Gita itself. So, if we have a modicum of faith in the Shastra and we begin to apply it in our lives, we'll find that it's our friend. Shastra is speaking to us in a way to guide us, to bring us to our highest potential in life. So there are various scriptures which are especially important because the Vedas themselves start off with many ritualistic ceremonies for performing sacrifices that help to position one better in the material world. And when one no longer has faith in the material world and is thinking that why should I put energy into the material world when I'm just going to have to give it up all at some point anyway, then the Upanishads come along and say, actually, you might want to investigate and see the difference between matter and spirit and try to understand what is the transcendental position of life. And then from the Upanishads, you get the Vedanta Sutra and the Bhagavad Gita, which is known as the Gita Upanishad. It's really a summary of the Upanishads and Krishna speaking it himself, so it's actually half Shruti and half Smriti. It comes after the original Vedas, but it's also spoken directly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. There's a perfect confluence there. And then there's the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be a commentary, natural commentary, on the Vedanta Sutra. The Vedanta Sutra actually is not a book that you can, it's not a page turner that you take time off during the summer and sit down under a parasol in your garden and just read through, and that you'll be intrigued all the way through, unless you have that kind of brain. And not many people do on the planet these days. But it's very tersely written, and it is, it may seem like the concepts are disparate. It's not that one follows another very naturally all the way through. But as Radhika Raman Prabhu was pointing out the other day, they're really place markers for really big conversations about spiritual life in various places. But if you want to know everything that's in the Vedanta Sutra, which is the summary of all the important knowledge in the Vedas, then you can read the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Srimad Bhagavatam speaks to us in various ways to convince us of the superior nature of spiritual practice in life, and gently helps us to divest ourselves of the idea that I can be fully happy here in the material world. But it doesn't just leave us there, because often philosophies tell us that desire leads to misery. Therefore, just don't desire. But this is very difficult to do. Actually, according to the Bhagavad Gita, it's impossible. Krishna says that this is our nature to be desirous. But the Srimad Bhagavatam goes on to tell us that there's actually a way to purify our desires and to direct our emotions so that they're fully productive and that we feel happy and connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what are the ways that the Vedas teach from the very beginning that one can do this? Is through the power of sound vibration. In fact, you all know that the original Vedas are called Shruti, which means that they're assimilated through hearing. Sound is very powerful, so much so that the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra says, anavriti shabdat. By the sound vibration, transcendental sound, you can become uncovered and understand your true nature and your relationship with God. Anavriti shabdat. Now, I want to look a little closer at how this happens and what it means to take in transcendental sound vibration, what's actually taking place when we do this. And what is the modern application? What is the way in which we can take in transcendental sound even as we live here in Silicon Valley, which is supposed to be a very fast-paced place? Do you find it to be so? A little fast-paced? No? Okay, fast, a little fast. Let's look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12th canto, 6th chapter, 40th verse. And here we'll find some interesting concepts about sound itself. Of course, there are different kinds of sounds. We hear that there's sound that takes place in what we call the material atmosphere, or sometimes it's described as the material sky. And how is that sound coming about? For instance, pa 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 ma ma ka 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 ja ka 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 ha ja. I'm making noises with my palate, and it's exploding in the air. Or if I do this, you can hear that, right? That's because there was a concussion of my hands, and it created airwaves that are going, and they're actually hitting the physical apparatus of your eardrums, where there are little cord-like instruments that feed into a nerve that goes into your brain, and you're able to interpret it. So it's actually the movement of air from the concussion on the outside. Even when I speak, pa, 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 it's creating a particular kind of airwave that's going in and touching your eardrum. And you're able to interpret it in a certain way. This is spoken sound. But there's another kind of sound which is not spoken, or it's not created by a concussion in the outside physical world. It's an internal vibration that's beyond the physical sky. And that actually takes place remarkably within your internal sky, which is described to be within your heart. Now, here's the verse. It starts off, Shrinoti ya imam spotam, supta shotre chashunyadrik, yena vag vyajyate yasya. Okay, I'll go to the Devanagari. Yasya vritti. Okay, where was I? Vyaktir akasha atmanaha. Sadhamno brahmana sakshad. Vachaka paramatmana. Sasarva mantropanishad. This is sounding very encouraging, isn't it, so far? Mantropanishad. Veda Bijam Sanatanam. For those of you who know Hindi or Sanskrit or Telugu, you already get the feeling for what's going on here, right? Say yes. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the word for word. And it's kind of exciting to kind of sneak up on this verse by looking at the word for word. And we'll start to get an unveiling of the meaning. And I think you'll get really excited about it when I do this. So how about we all participate and all say each word, and then you can repeat it and listen to the quality of the word and what it means. Okay? Shrinoti, hears. Ya, who. Imam, this. Spotam, unmanifest and eternal subtle sound. Are we getting your attention now? I mean, what is unmanifest and eternal subtle sound? Wouldn't you like to know? It's spotam. Yeah. Supta shotre. When the sense of hearing is asleep. Cha and shunya drik. Devoid of material sight and other sensory functions. Yena. By which. Vak. The expanse of Vedic sound. Vyajate. Is elaborated. yasya, of which vyakti, the manifestation, akashe, in the sky of the heart, atmana, from the soul, sodhamna, who is his origin. And here, this his is a capital H. So it's this important to just put this marker down that the Vedas describe, for instance, the Shvetashvatara Upanishad describes how the body is like a tree. And on the tree of this body, there are two birds. One is the eating bird, and the other is the witnessing bird. So the eating bird is the living entity, and the witnessing bird is the Supreme Lord. This is also described in other sections of the Vedas. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yoviditati kaman. There's a distinction made between the individual conscious being and the greatest living being who is also conscious, but who's maintaining all the plurality of individual living beings. And so the distinction often is made here when we put a capital H, that we're talking about the Paramatma, or the Supreme Soul. And whereas we're not the Paramatma, but we have the same qualities, but not in the same quantity. He's omniscient and omnipotent, whereas I'm not. I'm infinitesimal, but have the same quality of consciousness. So here, Swadhamna, who is his origin? Brahmana, of the absolute truth. Sakshat, directly. Vachakaha, the designating term. Parama Atmana, of the Supersoul. Sa, that. Sarva, of all. Mantra, Vedic hymns. Upanishad, the secret. So interesting, this word is translated as the secret because Upanishad literally means to sit up close. And it indicates that when a living entity is tired of being bombarded by the material senses and divines that there's actually a higher purpose to life, and becomes inquisitive about how to solve the problems of life from a spiritual platform by taking up a practice that would bring one closer to God, then this idea, Upanishad, means that you sit up close to listen, and you want to know what the answer is. You don't want the vibration to break either. Like you're just about to hear something. It happens all the time on cell phones. They're just about to say the most important part in the whole conversation. Here comes the conclusion. It's like, hey, you're breaking up. I think that happened less when we had those wall phones. In any case, Upanishad means you're vitally interested in hearing. You want to hear exactly what the solution to life is, and you know you're hearing from the right source. So we say the secret. You want to hear what's the secret of life. Veda, of the Vedas. Bijam, the seed. Sanatanam, eternal. We're going to be in suspense here for a while. Translation. This, I'll say it all the way through, and then we can read it together. This Omkara, ultimately non-material and imperceptible, is heard by the Supersoul without his possessing material ears or any other material senses. The entire expanse of Vedic sound is elaborated from Omkar, which appears from the soul within the sky of the heart. It is the direct designation of the self-originating absolute truth, the Supersoul, and is the secret essence and eternal seed of all Vedic hymns. Now let's read it all together. This Omkar, ultimately non-material and imperceptible, is heard by the Supersoul without his possessing material ears or any other material senses. The entire expanse of Vedic sound is elaborated from Omkar, which appears from the soul within the sky of the heart. It is the direct designation of the self-originating absolute truth, the Supersoul, and is the secret essence and eternal seed of all Vedic hymns. Now here's the purport, which is an essentialization of what's been taught by all the previous acharyas about this verse. The senses of a sleeping person do not function until he has awakened. Therefore, when a sleeping person is awakened by a noise, one may ask, who heard the noise? The words Suptashotre in this verse indicate that the Supreme Lord within the heart hears the sound and awakens the sleeping living entities. The Lord's sensory activities always function on a superior level. Ultimately, all sounds vibrate within the sky, and in the internal region of the heart, there is a type of sky meant for the vibration of Vedic sounds. The seed or source of all Vedic sounds is the Omkar. This is confirmed by the Vedic statement, Om Ityetad Brahmano Nidishtam Nama. The full elaboration of the Vedic seed sound is Srimad Bhagavatam, the greatest Vedic literature. Now, we will notice from the purport that there are different states of consciousness that we are moving through, even in one 24-hour period. And in general, there are three states of consciousness that we experience as living entities when we're in contact with the material nature. So one of them is awakened consciousness. Another is called sleeping consciousness. And another is called sleeping without dreaming. Sleeping with dreaming is something that we're all aware of. There is a state in which we enter into a place where we're not in contact with the active mind, and we're not experiencing dreams at all. So these three states are mentioned. Now, this is also pointing out, is this purport, that actually it's not we who are hearing. It's the Supersoul who's hearing and who's facilitating us hearing. Krishna mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita in the 15th chapter when he says, Sarvasya cha hamradi sanivishto matak smitir jnanam apohanam cha. I am there within the heart, he says, right along with the living entity. And it's from me that come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And therefore, as is stated in the purport, the Lord is hearing the sound, and he's allowing us to hear the sound afterwards. So how's this especially relevant for us in the practice of spiritual life? It's mentioned in the Padma Purana. Atashi Krishna namadi na bhaved grayam indriye seva mukhi jivado swayam eva spuratyada. Of course, the longest journey begins with the first step, right? So for those who are interested in coming in contact with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and reviving their spiritual life, this verse gives the formula and the first step. First, it says that you can't understand the Supreme with your blunt material senses. And this is because Krishna is beyond the senses. That's brought up in this verse. He's transcendental. He's in a position called Turiya. It's beyond the three states that we're associated with in this material world. Awakened consciousness, sleeping, and sleeping without dreams. But he's in the fourth position, beyond the conditional life of the living entity. And therefore, our senses, which are even lower than we are, can't conceive of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why people who try as hard as they can to observe even in nature, they try to see things, end up frustrated. We can ask any of our physicists if this is true or not. But there's a way of even observing the material nature, which is said to be Krishna's inferior energy, that it's not only endlessly mutable, but there are principles I've heard of that describe how even as you observe material nature, you affect the environment and the subject that you're looking at just by looking at it. Is that true, Vrindavan Priya? You better give him the microphone because he's going to start talking physics back there. You all want to hear physics, right? Okay, let's hear.
That is true, especially in quantum physics. And quantum physics is...
He has a PhD from Stanford in physics. We flew him in here for this class. Go ahead. Sorry, Vrindavan Priya. Go right ahead.
One small thing is that quantum physics is known as the most fundamental and also is acknowledged as the most successful theory of matter known to the scientists or to the scientific community at this time. And according to it, that is what you said is very is true. It actually suggests the importance of or the presence of consciousness in our pursuit for knowledge. Without consciousness, you cannot just go about understanding matter and also have complete knowledge about it. So the consciousness somehow plays a role. They don't have a clear idea how it does, but there is a hint towards it.
Thank you very much. And in a similar way, the verse is saying that if we try to observe actually physics, looking at matter and trying to circumscribe what it is, give a formula to describe all matter. At least I know that has been there's been an effort in that for some time. Is not altogether successful because it's really difficult to describe consciousness, which is categorically different from matter. And the senses themselves have no power to understand a consciousness. What to speak of the Supreme Consciousness, who's the origin of both matter and spirit in this world. So the verse says that don't try to understand the Supreme Truth through your blunt material senses. Or it says that you can't understand it through your blunt material senses. However, there is a way in which to understand. And it's based on the fact that if there is a Supreme Person who is superior to us, if it's His will to reveal Himself to us, then not only has He every right to do so, He has the wherewithal to reveal Himself to us as well. And according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, He's more than eager to revive our knowledge of Him and our relationship with us. So, what is the solution then from our side? The verse says, Sevon mukhi hijivado. So, seva means service, and unmukhi means it's done with one-pointed attention. In other words, you're actually interested in doing the service, and you have a conception that you're doing it purposefully for the reason of pleasing the Supreme Person. Sevon mukhi. And how does it start? Jiha adao. Adao means the first thing that you do. And jiva means the tongue. So if you start the process of bhakti and doing service to the Lord by using your tongue, Seva mukhi jivado swayameva spuratyada. So spurti, it's same in this verse as spotam, the verse that was there a minute ago, which means that there will be a revelation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because He reveals Himself to the person who has the right attitude. And therefore it's not just the sound itself, but when one intentionally worships the Lord by vibrating the sound, especially of the holy names of the Lord and of the Srimad Bhagavatam, then Krishna becomes inclined to reveal himself to us. That's what the verse says. And therefore, it's not a mechanical or a material process. It's dependent on our mood of devotion. And therefore, if we read Srimad Bhagavatam in a devotional atmosphere, then the Srimad Bhagavatam itself says, very quickly we'll come to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because, as the Brahma Samhita says, Premanjana Trudita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. And that is that those who have been endowed with prema or love for Krishna, and it's said poetically that their eyes, it's like you get a salve and you put it in your eyes to cure your eyes from some disease, so then you can suddenly see the world the way it is. So when you put this salve of prema in your eyes, then you can see Shamasundar. You can see him everywhere. So where does that come from? Where do you get the salve? It comes from chanting the names with devotion, or hearing them from others who are chanting them with devotion, or hearing and chanting the Srimad Bhagavatam, the association of those who have love for Krishna. A verse that verifies this in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken by Kapila Dev, and he says, Satam prasangam mama virya sambido vavanti hritkarna rasayana kata tajjoshana dashu apavarga vartmani shada ratir bhaktir anukramishati. This rati, or love, it comes from the sound vibration itself when it's spoken amongst those who already have this love for Krishna. It's in the name, but it's not a material name. It's not happening because of the percussion of the tongue creating airwaves, but it's a vibration that's coming from the non-material sky, and it vibrates in the sky of the heart. And Krishna notices the mood of the devotee who's reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, or chanting the holy names. This is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam again. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hrityan taksto hibadrani vidhunoti suritsatam. And that is that because Krishna is already there in the heart, when you hear the Srimad Bhagavatam with devotion, then Krishna hears the sound, because he's the supersoul. He hears it first. And we can't hear anything without him. In fact, we can't hear, we can't see, we can't walk, we can't do anything without the help of the supersoul. But when he hears the sound, and it's mixed with even a tiny little bit of bhakti, that means some faith, some devotion in him, then he lets us hear that sound. And that sound is non-different from him. And that's what it means when there's a spurti or a spotram. It means he actually is revealed through that sound, because he reveals himself in that medium. So he's there within the heart, and it's the vibration in that sky of the heart which is perceived by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who then allows us to perceive him because of our devotional attitude. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentions in his Shikshashtakam, Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate, Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, that you will have progress in spiritual life through the Sankirtan, through repeating the transcendental vibration in the association of pure devotees. And Sarvatma, in all directions, you'll become purified by this vibration. So it's already there. We're equipped for this. We just need to have a conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the association of those who have faith and love in him, and hear the vibration itself. And by that, we'll make progressive steps towards prema, or attaining love for Krishna. And this is the main process that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught to the world. And that is chant Hare Krishna the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, repeat the names of God. There are other names of God like Gopal, Govinda, and that the devotees sing and repeat with love and devotion. And through that, Krishna reveals everything. What is everything? First of all, he gives us knowledge, which comes from his internal potency called samvit, which means when we have the connection to the higher vibration of the holy name with the right mood, then we get clear knowledge of who we really are. And that is that we're eternal servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we also get happiness, and that comes from the Hladini Shakti. That's also there naturally when one contacts the internal energy of the Lord. The Hladini Shakti is the source of all pleasure in spiritual life. And therefore, when one begins to make progress in chanting the holy names and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, then spiritual practice is perceived as pleasure itself. And therefore, devotees naturally become hesitant to re-engage their senses in the so-called pleasure of the material world. They, of course, move around and they do everything they have to do. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tatvavit Pashyan shinvan sprasan jigran ashnan gachan sapan sasan pralapan vishrinan grinnan unmishan nimishan napi indriyan indriyarteshu vartanta iti dharayan. A person who has attained even a modicum of this divine consciousness by coming in contact with the non-material sound, by chanting and hearing with devotion, then uses his or her senses, but is fully aware that they're only going on mechanically, that he or she is not the material senses of the body, and that person remains in that position unconcerned with the movements of the material world. And this is the beginning of spiritual life. So now we'll take a few reflections. Anything you heard from the verse, the purport, or the monologue thus far. And that includes all of the devotees who we've been informed are here online. We know you're out there. So you can write in to the on Facebook, or you can text us. The number's on the screen if you have questions or comments. Yes, Radhakripa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, to your point about that we cannot use our mechanical process to see Lord. Coincidentally, I read yesterday Narada Muni's conversation with Vyasadeva 1.6.19, where he expressed that he tried to see the Lord, mechanically trying to find the Lord, but he could not. But in the purport, Prabhupada very, that purport I just loved so much yesterday. I forwarded to a couple of my friends. He said there is no mechanical process to see the form of Lord. It completely depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. It's very a relative one. I just wanted to add to your commentary today.
Thank you. And it's a very important philosophical or point of logic that, of course, scientifically you may say we're investigating the whole world and we're looking for God. Even Hiranyakashipu did this. But he complained that God has entered within the hearts of all living entities, that I can't find him anymore. Because he reasoned that he's afraid of me, so he's hiding there. The material scientists, and I don't mean to be blasphemous against physics or anything like that, but I would say that there's a way in which, through the empiric approach of trying to find ultimate knowledge in matter, through doing the investigation with one's senses, and thinking that one could perhaps pry from the material nature some secret that would reveal the ultimate code that explains life and everything else about the world, might not be successful. And the reason, logically, is that, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, the material nature itself is his divine energy. He says, Daivahi yesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This is a very important point, not just for spiritual advancement, but for success in life in Silicon Valley. And I'll explain what I mean by that. And that is that if ever you find that you're in an inferior position and you want something from a superior, what is the only way to get what you want? I'm hearing a few people, and I think through the material sky, I'm hearing service. That's an interesting concept because I could not, for instance, if I went to go get a job at Google, and I'm very sure that I wouldn't get one, if I insisted upon it and told them they had to give it to me, I don't think I would be successful. If I went there and I offered to render service, perhaps, and they saw that I was really sincere, maybe they'd allow me to sweep the floors there or something like that. Anytime an inferior approaches a superior, the only way to get what you want actually is to submit yourself, because you have no other choice. So in a similar way, we trying to understand the ultimate, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, have no other recourse except to be very meek and humble and approach in a submissive attitude. And of going back to the idea that Krishna is the ideal parent. It's not that parents want to hide themselves forever from their children, although children sometimes might hide from the parents. Krishna wants to reveal himself to us. And if we go with a submissive heart, then very readily he'll reveal himself. But it isn't a mechanical process. He reveals especially to those who are in a devotional mood. What? Okay. Yes. Yes, Shraddha.
So Maharaj, when we chant the Maha Mantra and the Super Soul gets revealed in our heart, so the bhaktas will see him as in like Vishnu form or as two-handed Krishna form. How will they see him?
She's asking that what form would one see when one chants Hare Krishna, and would the Lord in the heart reveal himself as Paramatma or as Shyamasundar? And the various features of the Lord, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vadanti tat tat vidas tatvam yaj jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite, are revealed because of the particular intensity of one's devotion and the particular flavor of one's devotion. So Krishna is the origin of all the different forms, that is Brahman, Paramatma. But if one approaches with a particular mood, then Krishna reveals himself, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ye yata mam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanavartante manusha partasarvasha. As one approaches me, to that devotee I reveal myself accordingly. And Prabhupada mentions in the section of the Srimad Bhagavatam when Vidura is traveling all over to holy places and he's seeing many different kinds of deities, that Krishna has manifested those deity forms to please his devotees. That's why he's appeared there. And we might also add that why is it that there, in ISKCON temples all over the world now, there are various forms, like we see Gaur-Nitai, Shri Radha Krishna. And that's because Prabhupada went everywhere. He's a pure devotee, and Krishna, that was a manifestation of his devotion. Like Krishna would appear in those places to reveal himself in that particular way, because that was his particular kind of devotion. So the same way, the way I'm thinking of Krishna and approaching him, he'll reveal that form to me in my heart. That's why Premanjana Chudita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shamasundaram. Shamasundara is there for the unalloyed pure devotees. And for those who are Paramatma, then who are seeking the Paramatma or in the mood of Shantaras, perhaps, there's a way in which Krishna may reveal himself as in his four-handed form. This becomes really obvious. I think the gain just went up a little too much. And that is when Krishna enters the wrestling arena in Mathura. You know about this big wrestling match? It was way before MMA. And it was the original big fight that everyone was waiting for. Huge assembly of people from all over, the city people, and there was Kamsa and all the soldiers. There were Brijbasis came there, and all people had different moods. And so when Krishna and Balaram walked into the wrestling assembly, everyone saw them differently. Those who had this very rarefied kind of love for Krishna saw him as a lover and as Shyamasundar. And those who were yogis, they saw Paramatma just came in. And Kamsa saw him as cruel death and was afraid of him. So Krishna reveals himself according to the mode of approach of the devotee. He satisfies the devotee by reciprocating in a particular way. You've ever seen the picture of Hanuman? He's opening his chest, and in his heart you see there's Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman. You know. But for somebody else, you may open the heart. Like when Lord Nrsingadev tore open the heart of Hiranyakashipu, he was saying, how did all this junk get in here? Now, I'm not making this up. It's from the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He had actually gently ripped his heart open, if there is such a thing. And because it said with his lotus bud-like fingers. And he was remarking to himself, how did you let all these anartas, these unwanted desires, these envies come into your heart? And that's how Krishna was revealed to Hiranyakashipu in the form of a half man, half lion, tearing him to shreds. So if that's your mode of approach, if you approach like Hiranyakashipu, then that's the kind of vision that you'll have. Kanka.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the
Hare
nice
Krishna.
class. I like the part where the Paramatma is described in the sky of the heart. And I really, I can see that unless we ask and we always consider that Krishna is with us, my experience in chanting and practicing is that the more we feel him in our heart and that he's always with us as our best friend, that we, and there was an example I was reading today in the Bhagavatam about Maharaj Ambarish, because he understood this so firmly that even though Durvasa Muni had created this fiery demon, still he didn't even move 1 inch. He had no fear. And that's how Prahlad was. He had no fear. He knew that Krishna was there with him all the time to protect him.
Thank you, Kanka. This is called Krishna consciousness. Becoming aware, actually, even initially, not that we may see Shyamasundar right away, but at least in the way we move about the world, the way we receive intelligence, the way our body functions, we can become aware of the superior hand of Paramatma in our life. In fact, just yesterday we were studying a verse from the Pantratric mantras, in which when one awakens in the morning, one remembers and shows gratitude to the Paramatma for awakening one to one's consciousness. Because it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you just don't wake up at all. And when you do wake up, you can have great sense of gratitude that Paramatma just woke me up. And now he's giving me intelligence to move about the world. This is something Shukadeva Goswami mentions in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that he says, through observing the ways in which the Paramatma is giving me intelligence, I can become aware of his presence. And Prabhupada comments on this, that even an ordinary person can become aware of Krishna's presence by observing how one's being given intelligence. And then he goes on to say, does Srila Prabhupada in his purport, that this kind of intelligence that comes to us regularly for maneuvering through our lives is very much like a parent giving instruction to a small child. Go this way, turn that way, don't touch that, move away from that. And you'll notice that it's coming in from a superior position. and it's being offered to you. If you take the time to notice it, you'll become aware of the Paramatma within your chitta, within your consciousness. He's there benevolently guiding. But he also goes on to say logically that means also there is a Bhagavan beyond even the Paramatma. And the logic is this: God can't just be an order supplier. He can't just be the one who's showing us the direction here in the material world or supplying our needs, which he's doing at every second. Because the definition of God is he's swarat. He's completely independent and he has nothing to do with the material world. And therefore one could logically understand that the guide within our heart is a plenary expansion of Bhagavan, who is completely independent, has his own enjoyments in the spiritual world. Other reflections or questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, actually, for my blunt intelligence, it was very tough for me to understand this, the purport and the translation. But thank you so much for explaining it. I just want to reiterate it to know whether it is correct. At least what I understood is that the Supreme Lord, as Paramatma, resides within the heart of within our heart, and of course, this Omkara is so imperceptible, it's so difficult to understand, but he resides within our heart and he grasps it and helps the soul understand and therefore makes the connection. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Therefore, you'll find that one's lifestyle choices are important. When we begin chanting Hare Krishna, for instance, there's instruction about how to organize your life in such a way that you're devotionally oriented and that you're not putting in contamination into your mind. And that comes in the form of various offenses that one should avoid, because already the mind becomes, although it's originally a bright and smooth surface, it becomes muddied after taking in so much contamination from the outside. And then it becomes contracted because of qualities like envy, through identifying with the material body, through the false ego. One thinks in terms of I and mine, and becomes what's called a kripana, or a miserly type of person, a narrow-minded person. The consciousness actually contracts. And not only does it become narrow, but also it's full of all kinds of contamination, so it's narrow and dark. That doesn't sound very good. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, Shreya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam, Vidyavadu Jivanam, Anandam Buddhivardhanam, Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam, Sarvatma Snapanam, Param Vijayate, Shri Krishna Sankirtana. There's a lot in there, but really saying that your consciousness, your chitta, which is originally pure, has become contaminated, and therefore you can't see yourself and you can't see Krishna there with you in your heart. But if you take to the sincere process of chanting God's names, then Krishna will help to polish your heart. It will become bright and smooth and clean again. And you'll be able to understand your relationship with him. So much so that by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam itself that Krishna wants to set up residence there. I mean, he already has, but the fact is that he's not manifest to me. But he'll become fully manifest, just like if you want to build a temple and install Krishna, you have to go to a little bit of trouble. And the trouble that we go to is establish him in our heart is to avoid certain kinds of offenses that contaminate the heart more, and to chant devotionally with as much attention. Sevon mukhi jivado. We give full attention to the chanting of the holy name. And by that, Krishna cleanses the heart, and he also expands it. Anandam buddhivardhanam. It means that the consciousness becomes more and more expansive and accommodating and able to understand everything about the world, to have compassion for others, and so forth. Bali Mardan Prabhu.
Hare
And then
Krishna.
more from the internet.
So as we celebrated the Radhastami Friday, it was very nice. And one question came, like there are some devotees asking, and also from Pushti Marga, was saying that you guys do a lot of fasting on the day of appearance, like Janmashtami or Radhastami, but we don't do it because Krishna had appeared, so we celebrate by eating a lot and enjoying a lot. So Radhastami, and he gave me an example that how in Nathdwara they do a lot, and also in the lunar eclipse and all, they openly offer to God and distribute at the time where we refrain it. So I was trying to give some insight, but there are many devotees with similar questions. So I'd like to know from your realization that why we fast during Janmashtami and Radhastami. Krishna has appeared, Radharani has appeared, but what is the regulations? Please tell.
Well, frankly, we didn't even notice, did we, that we were fasting? Because really we were busy. And that's the ultimate reason to control the senses, or appearance of controlling the senses. Like, I'm really too busy. That was Haridas Thakur's reason. That he was sitting in Benapul, and people became envious, because people become envious of everybody. But then if somebody's very spiritually advanced, they think like, why him, not me? Why are people bowing down to this person? They should all bow to me. And so this one chief policeman in town wanted to discredit him, so he sent a prostitute there. And Haridas Thakur was young, he was by himself, and the prostitute came there and tried to entice him. And he said, fine, but not now, later. And the reason that he gave was, I'm busy. I got to finish my rounds. And she came back 3 days in a row, until she actually got affected by his chanting, and she became a devotee, and she admitted the whole plot. And he said, oh yeah, I knew that. But the technique is there, and Prabhupada mentions it. He says that if you want to control the senses, then you have to employ neglect. Or as Jamuna's mother taught us about growing orchids. If you grow orchids, you have to use tender, loving neglect. So our fasting really is because we don't want to take even a second away from the day of Janmashtami. And when you fast, you get so much more time. I mean, it's unbelievable. Even on Ekadashi, it's like, how did I get so much done? And like, what do I do every other day? Well, I cook, I eat, I digest, I eliminate, I sleep, and this is called, the life of eating and sleeping. But in Vrindavan, nobody sleeps ever. And on Janmashtami, we don't sleep, and one of the reasons is we don't eat. And we have full time to just engage in Krishna service all day long. But the next day we have a big feast. Nobody can accuse us of not having feasts. I mean, we eat. This is a kitchen religion here, so I don't think that'll work. It's not like we're withering away or anything like that. Thanks, Bali Prabhu. Yes, Malini.
Thank you for bringing out that beautiful verse from the sixth canto, Prabhuji. The part that really stuck to me was when Prabhupada wrote, who hears the sound first, that part. I was just reflecting how when I go to bed, I pray to Krishna that, please wake me up early and help me that I can chant my rounds sincerely. And when the sound of the alarm comes, when you're in deep sleep, how would you hear? So it's so nice. And same thing is when you have a question and when you pray with some sincerity, then the question is answered through devotees or through reading of books or something like that.
Yeah, and yogis actually can dissolve their external sense perception so that they can hear the inner sounds. And they become so internally focused that the external sound no longer has effect. Even if you went like that next to the ear, they wouldn't hear it. and because they're becoming more and more concentrated on the internal sound. And it's a sound that's described, it's not created by friction with the material world. It's a sound which is already there. But I'm unaware of it because I'm so externally focused on the sounds. But when I make that external sound of chanting Hare Krishna and it's mixed with devotion, then Krishna reveals its real substance that is non-material. It's beyond the material sky. It's not alphabet. It's actually Krishna himself. Iti murtyabhidanena mantra murtim amurtikam yajate yagya purusham sasam yag darshana puman. Narada Muni comes right after the section that Radhakripa Prabhu was telling us about when Narada tried to see the Lord. Then he mentions how if you want the full darshan of Krishna, you can get it through the mantra. Iti murtyabhidanena mantra murtim amurtikam. And it's very easy that way. Yes, and from the internet.
So Maharaj, there are 3 reflections and a question. So I'll go over the reflections first. So we have Saheli Datta Mataji, and she's also a physicist.
Really?
Yeah. And so she says that most scientists are not looking for the ultimate knowledge, and many more are religious than one might realize. And then she says that...
Well, we've got proof because we have...
Yes.
We have two
at least.
physicists right here that are very, very religious.
Yeah. And then she says that recently Srimati Urmila Devi Prabhu noted that it is actually possible for even a religious person to forget God with dementia. And I found this very humbling. We really need to beg Krishna to let us remember him. And then she's, in another comment, she's saying that like how Jagannath showed up in San Francisco, then to finally get shoplifted by Malati Prabhu.
Nice variety there. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah. And this is Radha Venkat Prabhu from Folsom.
Oh, good.
And he's quoting from the Gajendra prayers.
Yes.
And he says 8.3.10. And I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the self-effulgent Super Soul, who is the witness in everyone's heart, who enlightens the individual soul, and who cannot be reached by exercises of the mind, words, or consciousness.
Very interesting that you brought that up, Radha Venkat Prabhu, because it's one of the verses that Jiva Goswami quotes in relationship to this conversation and showing how a person, or in this case an elephant, who makes a prayer with the right mood, then is able to come in contact with the Supreme Lord through his bhakti. Thank you. And a question.
So this is Namrata from Sydney. Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranams. The question is, how do we distinguish between the instruction of the Super Soul and our own intelligence?
Very good question. This is through triangulation. When one is moving through this bodily existence, it's important to triangulate. And by that I mean we have to take help from several sources, reference points. Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And these should concur. So Shastra says a particular way that we should act, and then we can confirm that with Guru, who helps like an attorney. Like the law books are there, but you may not know your way through the law books. And if you ask a Kurnath, he'll say, oh, it's over here. Not this section, it's in this section. And it applies here, but not there. And this is how you apply it. He'll tell us the particulars of the law based on case law and precedent. So in a similar way, the Shastra is there, and then the Guru helps to find the application of the Shastra in one's life. And then for further reference, one can see the life of those who are advanced practitioners. Do they follow that mode that's being suggested? So if you draw one point on a paper and you draw a line that can go in any direction. But if you put 3 dots on a page, then it's going to start going in a particular direction because you have to line them up. So in the same way, finding help from these 3 sources will help one go in the right direction. And one more question.
This is for someone who wants to stay anonymous.
Okay.
And the question is that to do with how Super Soul, wakes us up.
Yes?
And the question is that if we don't feel gratitude when we wake up or when we are waking up by the Super Soul,
Yes.
then how to develop that gratitude?
There's a prayer you can say. Does anybody have it? Actually, the Panchatric system is when you wake up, it's very important to acknowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead woke you up for a purpose. And here's a prayer that you can say when you first wake up in the morning. It goes like this. Prata prabodhito Vishnu Rishikeshena yat tvaya yat karana shishana tat karomi tavagnyaya. O Vishnu, O Ishana, O Rishikesh, you have awakened me, and now I am ready to do whatever you wish today. So that's a Panchatric mantra that anybody can take, and you don't have to know the Sanskrit, but if you take the spirit of it, and you have to practice, because it's known that coming from a material orientation in life to a spiritual one requires rehab. So it's a little trendy to be in rehab nowadays. So if anybody asks you what you've been up to lately, just say, I'm in rehab. And this is definitely a rehab verse to say thank you. And the other day, we had an interview process with Satyadev Prabhu for the Wednesday night class. It's quite edifying, actually, asking him questions. And I asked him what he does when he wakes up in the morning. He says the first thing he does is he looks at a picture of his guru, Srila Prabhupada, and he says, thank you. And if you just try that, wake up and say thank you, even if you don't feel it, you'll feel a rush of gratitude that comes into your heart as a reciprocation for taking that 1 second. I was just reading this morning, Prabhupada said, bhakti is not very complicated. Pleasing your family, that's complicated. But pleasing Krishna is not complicated at all. All you have to do is say thank you and really mean it, and Krishna will flood your heart with a kind of a sense that I love you too, and I'm here for you. And really, that sense is very natural, and bhakti is very natural. And now, in the last several seconds we'll chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the mode of practice, it's important to get a good start. And so one of the ways of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra we're about to do through this chanting of kirtan. And the other way is japa. Today we're featuring a special booth outside, and there's special headphones that you get to wear where you can block out all other sounds. It's pretty close to the yogis blocking out all the extra sounds. We're just doing it technologically. And you'll just be able to hear the voice of your instructor and also your own chanting of the mantra. And they'll take you through a process, teach you how to do your own japa at home to make this transcendental vibration. So you can take the course. It's out there. It's just a few minutes per person, and they can take a few at the same time. So you can see the tent outside for your japa course. And then also the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the incarnation of Krishna in sound vibration that is complete. And if you add this vibration to your life by putting the books in your home and listening to it every day, then you'll make rapid progress. And also we have a special day coming up on the 13th of September. It's called Bhadra Purnima. It's the day on which when you give away the gift of the Srimad Bhagavatam, then in return, you get a free ticket back home, back to Godhead. So you might want to cash in on that. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Sadhu Sangha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Five. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanande, Nitai Gaura, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura, Haribo. Thanks for coming to ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Thanks for joining us online from various parts of the world. We felt your presence very acutely, and we are deeply touched. So now we're going to move all these asanas out of the way and reveal the greatest dance floor in the history of ISKCON, right below your own feet. These are from trees who somehow prayed that someday they would be involved in the Harinam Sankirtan movement, and that devotees from all over the world would come and dance upon their heads. So please accommodate them by dancing to your heart's content on this beautiful, hardwood, soft, buttery, smooth floor. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.